I work in higher education, and while I'm exposed to certain things that we study academically in class, while I'm exposed to certain higher ed things by sort of living through it every day at work, I'm in my professional setting, and it's a very different way of thinking, analyzing, communicating. It's different in how we digest information, reflect, and then communicate back in the academic setting. I think perhaps the biggest reason for feeling as though I'm an imposter or that I'm a fraud is because I've actually done the doc program in an untraditional way and an unconventional way. Although I think it's becoming more common, and that is I worked full-time. In fact, I work full-time here at LSU. You know, when you go to grad school full-time, usually you begin and you have your cohort, you have a group of people who you are all pretty much on the same path, similar schedules, maybe each has a grad assistantship, things like that. And you kind of lean on each other and bounce ideas off each other. I don't really have that. But what I've lacked is the ability of a full-time graduate student to really immerse myself deep in thinking academically about the subject of higher education that's at the core. Because again, working in higher ed as a professional is very different than studying academically. It's very different. And for that reason, because I've never been able to really immerse myself completely in the field for even one semester, I felt as though I'm not, quote unquote, a real grad student, you know?
My original program was a PhD in Ed Leadership and Research in Higher Education Administration. As a person with only degrees in secondary education and curriculum and English, I felt really out of element when I stepped into the higher education PhD classes. I felt like I didn't have any experiences in higher ed administration, and I think that it really affected my mindset kind of when I came in. And everyone was introducing themselves and they had all this experience, and I just felt out of place. I started to really get nervous, probably within the first week about oh my gosh, I can't believe I got into this program. I can't believe that I'm here. I can't believe that I'm amongst all these people who are doing all these things, and I'm just sitting here as the teacher, and I don't think I'm ready. And I felt that way for probably the first couple of months that I was in the program. Because I was unfamiliar with the topics, I didn't really know what was going on as far as some of the content, because I wasn't used to those theories and those people and the terminology of higher ed, and I didn't know any of the terminology. I mean, I went to one class and they were talking about stakeholders, and everyone knew what a stakeholder was, and I was like, I don't know what a stakeholder is.
For me, I had just come off of a master's degree in New York, where I had both family and friends in the general area. And it was in the same field that I had gotten my bachelor's degree. It was in public relations, a very practitioner-based field. But I had just made the decision to not only pursue my PhD in higher education, which was a very big leap discipline-wise, but I also decided to pursue the degree 1,500 miles from home in Louisiana. I knew no one, and I found my apartment online, and all I did was fill my Ford Focus and come down here with stuff. I remember having this sort of feigned confidence entering into the program, but inside I felt young and naive and unexperienced in both the education discipline and the rigor of scholarly research that I was about to do. Because of this, I was pretty quiet and reserved in the first few classes that I had. I kept my head down and did the work that I needed to do and did it well, but the lack of confidence kept nagging at me. No matter how well I did, there was always this little voice in the back of my head. Can you do this?
I think it's just been a matter of I think sometimes I think to myself, okay, I really faked it, in my interview. Or I made someone believe that I was capable, I made them believe I put on a show. But when the rubber meets the road and it's time to actually produce results, that's when I feel like, gosh, do I really know what I'm doing?
So I started off in the higher ed PhD program, but I ended up switching to the P12 leadership program. And I think that was because I was more comfortable in myself and the subject and in the community of people I was around. So I think that imposter syndrome, even though by the end of my first year I felt like I belonged, I still wasn't 100% comfortable and not as comfortable as I was in another subject. So I think that did play a role.
I found that trying to compensate so much for academic success made me forget to prioritize work-life balance and self-care, which are really important to me. And not being able to reach the standards that I had previously held myself to made me feel inadequate. It wasn't until I was 2 semesters into the program that I realized first that I could do this, and that also perfection is just simply not attainable. I was trying to do way too much when I think that as PhD students, we are already doing so much. And I think a really important part of that growth is to stop trying to compare our experiences to others.
I probably touched upon this already, and I think part of that is just simply, it's not so much anything that anyone can do themselves. It's literally the passage of time, and I think that just requires patience. It requires experience. Certainly, I think in a professional setting, it requires, at the very least, 1 full year in your job before you feel as though you're not a complete beginner. The last thing I'll say about how can people overcome imposter syndrome is to take comfort in the fact that this is an extremely common thing. And I'd venture to say virtually everyone, every human being who interacts with other human beings, everybody goes through this at some level, at some point, and this is normal.
I do think that it's important for people to have support, whether it's from your advisor, your group of friends, your significant other, your family. I think that plays a huge role too, because I feel like sometimes you just need a cheerleader to tell you, hey, you're awesome. Don't get discouraged. It's okay. Because a PhD is such a prestigious thing, it does make people a little bit weary about themselves because they feel like they're undeserving. But letting people know that you deserve this is for you, you're awesome, you're smart, you got this far, and you got to keep going is really the biggest thing.
It is a really tired phrase, but I really do think that hard work pays off. At some point, you look back on the hours that you've put in and the effort that you've given, and you come to a realization that you do this because of a passion and a drive to succeed. So, while academia may always be a very competitive and rigorous environment that we are in, we have to take the small victories or the seemingly insignificant assignments and take pride in them. And with pride comes confidence, I think.